Good morning and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Clinton Griffiths. Well, it's the time of year to make sure you're getting the most out of your pecan orchard. And one way to do that is through crop load thinning. SUNUPs Kathy Shelton recently met with a producer to find out how the process works and why it's so important.
Just outside Stillwater, a group of pecan management students are learning how to thin pecan trees. We thought we'd join them and see if we could learn something new too. First things first, what is crop load thinning? And why do producers need to consider it?
A lot of our trees overproduce severely, and if you can manage the crop load and take about half of that crop off, then what's left on the trees will make a good quality pecan, and this will help you to get production every year because the tree can build up the energy it needs to set next year's crop.
The quantity of nuts to remove depends on a lot of things, including the size, variety, nut set, and environmental factors, such as insect and disease. But most of the time, you want to thin at least half the crop. How can we tell that the tree even needs to be thinned? What are we looking for?
What you want to look for in a tree is you look at the terminal ends, and that's where the nuts are on the tree. And if it has nuts on over 60% of the terminal ends, it's overloaded.
Could you show us an example on this tree?
Yes. This particular variety
about.
is a 41-19-20. It's never been released. And if you look here, we have a cluster of 3, a cluster of 2, and a cluster of 4. Here's another cluster of 4. Here's one of 3, 2. This cluster has 4 nuts, and this one has 3. Every one of the terminals that we've looked at on this limb have nuts on it.
Which means it could be too much?
And this is extremely overloaded.
Okay.
If we leave all of these on, it'll affect the size and the quality of the nut on this tree.
But just having too many isn't the only thing you need to look for. Before you thin, you need to make sure the nuts are in the water stage. Here's how you can tell.
If you look at the base end of the tree, the pecan, it has an oval shape to it. You see the oval?
Yeah.
Okay, when you cut it, you want to cut with the oval, and you go right down the middle. And this way you can see what you cut it with the deal to where you can see where the expansion is in the water.
Yeah, so what are we looking for here then?
Okay, this is where the kernel is going to be. It's where it's white over here. Okay, this will turn to water. And what we want to do is shake this off of the tree before this completely fills out and gets 100% into water expansion. Because once it gets to that point, it's too far along that we won't help the tree by shaking them out.
In order to thin out your trees, you have to use a shaker that looks like this and works like this. Oklahoma State University came up with the concept of crop load thinning about 20 years ago, and it has proven to be quite successful.
It does vary by variety. So there's some varieties that just shaking doesn't work very well. But especially in very large nutted varieties, when you shake, you can reduce the crop for this year, but it also increases the quality. And then next year you'll also have a crop. It'll be smaller. You know, it may be equal to this year's crop because you took off 50%, but you're getting something every year instead of having a really large crop and then nothing, and then a really large crop and then nothing. So, you know, if you're running a business, you have something to sell every year, and it's going to be high quality material every year.
Is there anything that we should be concerned about when putting it on the tree, like the amount of pressure that you apply to it?
You have to be really careful in August when we're doing the nut thinning because the bark is loose on the tree because we still have sap flow up. So we actually put grease under the pads of our shaker, and we have to have what we call a donut pad shaker. And this protects the tree. If you squeeze it too tight, you can damage the bark, or if you let the shaker slip a little bit, you know, it can take quite a bit of the bark off the tree, and if you take it all the way around, it'll kill the tree.
The shaking is only done once a year.
Now you don't have to thin every tree every year, every cultivar, so it's really a tree-to-tree basis, year-to-year basis. But once you get your eye trained on how to do it and what to look for, then it's going to be beneficial.
When it's all said and done, this is what you see. As a producer, if I was doing this, I see money on the ground. Yeah?
When you get through and if you're shucking about 100 trees or 200 trees and you see all these on the ground, it does make you kind of think about it a little bit, because there's a lot of money laying on the ground. But
it needs to be done.
it has to be done.
You have to look at the tree and not the ground, because if you look at the ground, you won't shake off enough nuts. But it's just part of the process. The nuts there, you think, oh, there's a bunch of lost money, but you know, in the long run, you catch up, and it's not a loss. It's actually a gain for you by doing this management technique.